hello, darling, and welcome to the Just Jax podcast. Hi, I'm Jax, and I help you find the can in your cat. When we challenge our cats, miracles happen, because when I challenged mine of I can't draw, I can't paint, and I can't color, imagine my surprise when I discovered what I can do is create a 21-foot garden mural that was recently featured not once but twice on the front page of our local newspaper. Next up, I challenge the I'm no author, no artist, and no cursive writing specialist, but what I can do is self-publish 3 books for my kick-ass cursive writing curriculum, Crack the Cursive Code. I'm a jack of all trades, but what I master in is helping ordinary people like me to do extraordinary things through laughter, tears, life-changing stories, because metaphors are my jam. Together we can find the can in your can'ts, the do's in your don'ts, and the wills in your won'ts. I'm so excited for you. Let's go. Well, hello, my darlings, and welcome back to the Just Jax podcast. Hi, I'm Jax, and I am quite excited because I am sitting here in my youngest son's apartment, and I have brought my podcast equipment with me here, and I was very worried that I would have to be very, very careful on my audio. And I tested my audio, and you could also let me know. But I think this is fantastic. And my wings are now free for me to fly, which means that I can sit anywhere or be anywhere and do this. So this has given me a freedom moment, which is quite funny. Speaking of flying, because this episode is basically based on being the Wicked Witch of the West. I live in Washington State, and I am now in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where I lived for quite a good chunk of my adult life before I moved to the United States. And the reason I say that I am the Wicked Witch of the West is because there's no place like home to bring up your shit and the reasons why I live 800 miles away from here. But one of my sole purposes in coming up here was to see my family. It is around the Thanksgiving time. Really want to be back for work on Monday. It's payroll Monday and everything could have been done, but at the same time, it may not have been done. And I would like to still be there for that day to help out. And because it's Columbus Day in the United States, and some banks and government institutions may be closed on that day, and businesses, but the majority, especially the healthcare world, have no consideration for Columbus Day. And that was quite a rude awakening for me, actually, when I left Canada to go to work to the United States. For that is the biggest difference on how Canadian employers treat their employees and what is considered being taken care of. And, and since being taken care of is such a big topic of mine lately, that I've begun to notice on what I would like to be taken care of, and that it is lacking where I am now. I have more freedom than I did in the positions up here, but there's far less paid vacation days where I am now, considerably less. By now, and how long I've worked there, it'd be almost half of what I would have up here. But anyway, that's a segue. I am here now, and we're kind of celebrating Thanksgiving and this week, and I'm catching up with a bunch of people that I haven't seen in a long time, and really beginning to see if there's anything here for me to spend more time here, because it's now time. I'm really noticing the time away from my boys. Pardon, sorry, that was unexpected. And that is complicated and sometimes difficult being around them. They remind me of what I've been working with and through, and the challenges that I face being a mom. and the struggles that I had doing such. But aside from all that, it's easier, somewhat easier, if I am allowed to share my experience with them. Ooh, for context, context is very powerful. And I guess coming home is when, sorry, context is when you give context. Well, context is very powerful when you give it to others as well. You need to give it to yourself first, I believe, so that you can give yourself some grace to understand. Ooh, this is a. To understand where you belong, I suppose, and who you are. The most surprising part of my trip so far here is my understanding of my mother and why why there was this angst from her that I had a hard time understanding. And from what I'm beginning to picture and understand is when I was thinking of some material for this podcast on how awful my dad was to me, I could never remember anything that he did to me like that. And that was a real realization. There were some disappointments. He had made some promises to me, and he has disappointed me because he broke those promises. And those were things that he was going to get for me, give for me, do for me, be for me. But I never remember him calling me names. I never remember him raising a hand to me. I remember living around him being like that to my mom and my brother and them experiencing time with him. And but I had a and it's unless I completely blocked it out, I'm just like, where was mine? So if you had two people that wanted what I had without me knowing what I had, uh, then I could understand the angst. Does it justify any of it? Well, of course not. But context gives, I guess that's where the context comes in, where forgiveness comes in. Because when you give context, and you could sit there, well, I don't give a shit. Well, I get it because I felt that way towards my brother because he seemed to be the favorite. He was the one that my parents spent most of their attention on and noticed and cared. I felt very invisible. So for me, even though I was sheltered, I was in a bubble per se by myself, and it was lonely and awkward. But coming back here, I'm finding that when I'm talking with people and with my mom, I saw her and I'm able to talk to her and be thankful. And I'm seeing signs of my mom because for the longest time, there was Sonia, this woman that just was horrible to be around. And it was very difficult for me to be around her and try to give honor to my mom. And my mom was a kick ass person, went through a lot. But when Sonia showed up, I had a very difficult time with it until I understood, I suppose, or ooh, beginning to understand. Does it help when you have like when you understand the cause of a fire? Like if you have a cause of a fire, does it help change any of the outcome of what happens? Possibly if it's like insurance based, but really that insurance doesn't replace anything or replace what was taken or what happened or the damage of the fire. And that's the understanding. But if I can understand what the start of the fire was, I guess I suppose I can give some consideration. And the weirdest thing is happening in my life in regards whew, to the source of my information lately, because again, there was this medium that uh, stated that she taught was able to talk to my dead relatives, and I there's enough evidence out there to raise an eyebrow. And if you take all the religious connotations out and in, I'm just like, some of the information is undeniable. But I was unsure of this lady, and how I found this lady is I created my loser t-shirt and my loser logo and I did an episode about it on TikTok, and she saw it and she bought my sweatshirt. And I thought, well, in kind, I'll look to see what she's doing. And I'm always interested. I believe that there is good in God in everything, because if God created everything, then he has to be in everything. And in my mind, if we're just going to yell at what we call something, if I call it a tree and you call it a bush, and we fight over the fact of that, or of different kinds of trees, if you want to get more specific, or however you want to do it, we're fighting over what we're calling. And if all God is good and all good from comes from God, then it doesn't matter what we fucking call it. So I'm looking for the good in God in everything. And when I start to look for that, guess what I find? Because if you look for the bad and evil in everything, guess what you look for, and guess what you find? And I'm done. I've had enough of my life being fucking miserable. So I look for the good in God and everything, because if it's been created, it has to come from God. So there has to be good in it somewhere. Now, I also understand that there's a spectrum, and there is absolutely places where there's no good at all. And I believe that I'm protected enough. Maybe that's the difference. That I believe that I'm protected enough that there must be something for me there to go there. Otherwise, why would I go there? And if that's a too simplified concept for you, but it allows me to sleep really soundly at night. So I just and have very few bursts of anxiety. So when I was talking with this medium, she basically told me three very unusual things. Number one was that I was to cut my mom some slack. And I'm like, back up, bitch. You have no idea the experience that I've had with my mother. So I'm sorry that if you feel that way. But the entity that was talking, whatever the message was being relayed, was that she basically made me understand that as a parent, she really dropped the ball, and that she failed to give my mother what she needed to work through all the things that she needed to work through, and that they were very proud of me to be the chain breaker that I am, and that the hard work that I've been doing to do that. And the third thing is that my cursive writing books, and cursive is so important for the brain and what our children need today, that it's going to become something like a prescription. And those were the three things. But I really struggled with the part about how I'm supposed to be there and give my mom some grace. Coming back here, I have found that it was very different being around my mom. And this I had no idea that this episode was going to be about her, and I have no idea if she's ever going to hear it or want to. But I'm just really beginning to understand and give her some context. It was fascinating being with my aunt yesterday. This is her younger sister. This is the woman that has embodied everything that my mother had wanted to be. If she would have had more of the confidence that her sister had, I believe my mother would have kicked her ass. But because for some unknown reason to me, she has been a victim. And I understand that there are people that have victim mentality, but there are also people that have been victims and repeated victims on a lot of different areas where there could or would or should have been support. She is one of those people. So that is my mother, and I am beginning to understand some context. With that comes some understanding, but also it comes with an understanding of what and when, and learning to have boundaries in place still, but allow some understanding that there may be some difficulty with her navigating some of those boundaries. But I can be myself. It's just a very strange realization, even as I'm talking here. Maybe that's what my friend, another no place like home, a friend of mine that I haven't talked to in 40 years. Ooh, maybe even longer, who I haven't talked to since I was in high school. And we talked all the way here, and it made me realize that there's context, and she got context in my life, and it touched her, and I'm getting context in my mom's life, and it's touched me. And when I was with her sister yesterday, it was fascinating to bring to her attention that you have no idea what my mother has been through, because you were popular, and you had like you had a husband and you had all these different things, and she never had any of those things. And it opened my eyes to a lot of things. I was talking to a senior citizen friend of mine, and I met her through my ex-husband. They lived in the same retirement home. And if you're listening for the first time, yes, I have been. I've had multiple first names and even more multiple last names. And anyway, that's great podcast material. So I was visiting with her, and she was talking about how much theft there is in seniors' homes, in that whether it's conscious or unconscious, if you have your laundry done by someone or it's left downstairs, people help themselves, or if the room's unlocked, they go in the room. And it was interesting because I got a window into my parents, because my mom refuses to go into a home. She wants to die in her home. And her stubbornness and tenacity to stay in her home is something to be admired. And it was interesting because I've heard stories about my dad that he was hitting people because they were stealing stuff. And I thought he was just being violent. But I'm realizing that he well, he was being violent, but not that there's a reason, but he was telling the truth. And that really brought me insight, and I just was like, bam, there's no place like home when you come home and find out that there is some truth to what's happening, and you begin to see your parents in a different light. And does that mean that I get to grow up and be an adult and be independent? Because that's what I really want right now, and it's the first time in my life I've asked for it. I always was scared to some ways to be independent. uh, would I say I'm less fearful now? I'd say no. Whew, by the tremor in my voice, I'd say no. But it's time. It's time. So it's been a very interesting few days, and I had an opportunity to drive home with her because I was so tired. I needed to have someone in the car, and I knew the other passenger that we were driving home, if he was anything like my kids, was going to be sound asleep within 5 minutes of getting into the car, and I was absolutely correct about that. I had the opportunity to ride home with my mother, and my mother was talking to me about something that was going on with her sisters, and her sisters have pained her as well. It's my mom's been a very difficult person to understand, and all she wanted to do was be accepted by them, and it just seemed to um never happen. And I was frustrated with it because I had talked to my cousin, and I heard a different story when I was calling her on the way there, because I wanted her to know that I was going to see her sister and her nephew, because the last thing I want to do is surprise her. And I told her, I said, I think, Mom, if I even bring up what you asked about that it's going to I wouldn't even know if she'd tell me the truth anyway, because in the past my mom had asked me to spy on my father, and when I was visiting, and it made me uncomfortable. So I thought, well, if you're going to ask, I'm going to come right up front that would be impossible for me to do that, because I because first of all, when she admitted in front of her son and her her niece and her what do you call grand nephew, what he second nephew, I don't know, it's anyway. So, but she responded, she goes, "No, this has nothing to do with that. It's ridiculous." And it was really cool on how she responded in the most beautiful way, like my mom would. And the mom sighting has been pretty cool and pretty shaking, actually, because this has been a very interesting story to tell. Nor was I expecting to tell this story, so, or make this about her. It makes me nervous if she hears it, but maybe it would help. But I have no expectations that way, because we really are very, very different people and have different interests. And that's hard too when you have kids that have very dissimilar interests. And what do you do? Like, what do you hang out, and how do you communicate and touch and connect? And for me, it's been very difficult to find things. There's some things, yes, but there's always some kind of clouded thing behind it, and maybe this, even without saying anything, maybe this would help. But it was fascinating talking to my aunt because it's very clear that if she's looking on a witch hunt for my mom, that I'm the wrong witch. And maybe the wicked witch from the west. 'Cause she would be moving to Winnipeg, so that would be the wicked witch from the east. Oh, who knows? I have no idea. Anyway, but it just yeah, I'm just, but in general, I'm tired of tearing people down because there's no power in that. Because there's more power in empowering because there's actually the word power in it, for fuck's sake. And in some ways, um, empower could be a strong word, but I'm really tired of disempowering and putting the dis in there. That part, because if I'm stopping that with me too. That's the thing. Like with my boy, he'll bring certain things up, and I just talk to him about it, and it's like, look, I just this is who I am, and I realize that I missed the mark, and I can give you context why, and it's up to you. There's bullets in the gun, and it's up to you to learn how to fire it and keep shooting me with it, or you can take the bullets out and make blanks go bang bang kind of thing, and that's it. And that's basically what he does now, where there's little things that he'll say, and there's little remarks that he says that makes me know that there are still things that make him a little uncomfortable about my choices and actions. Wow. This is a really really fascinating episode about my choices and actions in life that impacted him in very serious ways. But I believe that the chain breaking part of it is the accountability part. Like I said, I can give him the context, but he could choose whether or not to use it to shoot me or shoot himself or shoot others, or again, like take the bullets out. I'd say my younger one has less bullets in there, but he's still pretty hard in ways that is that's 100% from me. That's Jack's magic right there. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. But isn't it weird though that to have to find home to leave home, like to grow up, because there were times I was sure I was adopted because there was no way I could live in this place that I just didn't belong. It was horrible. I've never fit in anywhere. And so then I'm like, okay, I gotta be adopted. I just have to be, because that would be the only. I can't believe this like horrific birth story that my mother tells me. That's just great. That's good podcast material. Which if you go Which, if you go back 2 episodes, it is podcast material. And so there's no way I could believe this horrific story until I had my wedding shower, and my cousin came from my dad's side, and it looked like I was in the mirror. So I really, really resemble my dad's side of the family. And because my dad's side of the family struggles terribly with mental illness, that we never had much contact with them. I remember seeing them once, and they introduced me to snapping turtles and ABBA music. And so that I'll always thank them for learning about ABBA or ABBA, whatever how you say it. I love that music and that band. And so that's where I was introduced to it. Maybe that's why it's nostalgic for me, because it's the only thing I have from that side of the family is that visit that one time until I saw my cousin at my wedding shower. And I realized, well, fuck, then this is my family. Shit. Oh my God, Jesus. Then why do I have to be so different? And then I realize now is to do what I can to break whatever chains I can so that something new can happen. But that when something has to end, it can sometimes be a painful death. And this picture that I've had of my childhood, and I witnessed horrible things. Yes, I did. And there were things that happened to me, and but I am tired of carrying that horrible story, because if you look at a Star Wars champion like my mom and other people like that, I had it pretty good. And so I'm going to shut the fuck up about some of my stories. Now, I have some other stories that, yeah, that put me in that championship ring. And well, fuck. Sometimes when you win, it's the worst thing to happen. That will be future podcast material. But until then, I'm going to bow out to the Star Wars champions of the world and give you a hug. And that sounds very, very small, but it's so interesting that I was just going to say I'm going to step out of that arena, and I'm looking. My son lives in the city of Calgary, and where he lives right now, he has the most epic view of downtown, and he could sit on his deck and look at the mountains, and the mountains here in the Calgary skyscape, and during the like in the morning when the sun hits them and the sunsets are just absolutely breathtaking. And I guess that's why I'm spoiled by looking at the mountains on a continuous basis or having to drive through them. I just drove through them on Friday, and I'll be driving through them again. And but he has this picture in front of the exact snapshot. He loves this snapshot. Wants to keep it in his life. It's the exact snapshot that he looks at live every day. It's almost like it's a window in his apartment, and it's like I'm looking at the downtown, and right in there is the arena. And yeah, it's just like that whole story and that whole concert, or sports where I kept score, or all the things that happen in arena, and of that mindset of being the victim of that. There are things that I have witnessed this weekend, and I'm halfway through my visit, that have made me realize that arena, I can step and close the door and may never step in again. And there might be stuff that I need back there on occasion, but only to help me solve issues and problems or opportunities of what I'm dealing with now. And so it's been a very interesting thing coming back here. It was fascinating because when I left, this is a really wet episode. When I left home this time, my house in the States, I actually cried when I left. That's that was the first time that has ever happened, and I really have no idea why that happened, but the drive here was just magical. There was one part that was frustrating. For They've closed down the major highway from Monday to Saturday from 9:30 till 3. And I'm not sure how that all works exactly, but there's a detour, and when all the traffic has to go through a single lane highway, you're dealing with semi trucks and slow drivers and all those kind of things. Luckily, this is the fall and the school season, so RVs are very few and far between. There are some, but nowhere near as many as we've had to do before. So with that, I teleported here. I missed my exit. I was talking to my friend, and I missed my exit, and I I was watching for it, and it was like I leapt, and then I got to Kamloops in record time. Even my car was going 90 miles an hour, and it felt like it was going 60. My car has never driven like that. It got an oil change, and I have no idea what they did or what they put in my car, but she is operating like a turbo. Like Betty is just kicking ass. So we teleported here. Then I had a little bit of turning around because of the detour, and then I teleported here again. I It was so quick and fast, and it's been an amazing time. But I'm going to leave you now because I'm on my way to visit some more people here, and it has been an absolute delight spending some time with you. And it has been a very, very wet episode, as I mentioned before. If you wanted to comment and get in contact with me, you can do so on Facebook and Instagram, or at my email of justjackspodcast at gmail.com. I have that kick-ass cursive writing curriculum, and we're going to be talking a little bit more of that in the future of Crack the Cursive Code, and you can get that also on Amazon as well as Barnes and Noble online. I have some really fun t-shirt designs with my loser, shift. We're going to get to that one too. My loser, shift, and forthwith merchandise, and those are also available on my website. And I want to thank you for spending your time with me. And together we will turn this shit into fertilizer and bloom where we are planted. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home.